Yeah, then I just get a basket from one of their dissolution and set a basket and set them down, you know, in baskets. Because the basket will hold it in place. But I just confiscated this a few years ago from the lab. But then that holds up the vials, so you don't have to worry about. But sometimes, depending on a lot of companies with their balances, well, they're only allowed up to, what is it, 20 grams on certain analytical balances, but then you don't realize that beaker is taking up quite a bit of it. And you're doing everything with most analyticals, you have 5 places, but you can knock it down a tenth to 4 places on a lot of those, but you're using a top loader because usually those analyticals are only good up to 200 grams. Your beakers, you're starting, yes, empty at normally around 18 grams empty, those plastic beakers with the lids. But when they're filled, they're about 270. So it's going to take everything. Normally you're going to use a top loader for that, and most top loaders are 2-phase.
Do you make printouts from the balances usually?
Always.
Always.
If they have a printer to it, it's automatic.
If not,
always going to.
And you staple it to the page of the back side of the page.
Like say, for instance, I'm doing. We're doing the pH5. So and I have the beakers now. I just weighed all those beakers.
Empty. Print out.
So
then
I'll have that
full
print out. What I'll do is I actually tape it to the back.
I don't need it.
Glue them or I staple them. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Staple or tape.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I just find it and I'll tape it in, and then when I'm finished the final weight.
If there is no printer.
No printer, then I'm handwriting it directly right into this.
I'm writing them and print out everything.
Well, we have to take it from the printouts and then handwrite, and that's usually sometimes I do to make up time. While it's doing the pH, that's going to sit for half an hour.
Yeah.
Just running. And actually, a good sign is when it's at 38 minutes, 38 and a half, pH is done.
Yeah, but you have also these supporting documents, so they put all this data.
Yeah, but then you have to mark all single printouts from where it is for which
that's
procedure.
When you have to write in that, you know, this is OQ1 pump A, 7.5 mil initial. Then it's the same thing final. You know, weight. This way, what I found is that if I
just
do
staple
it
them on the
back
page
of this page right here, I still sort of write the same thing on there because some companies even want the balance ID written on it, and then you've got to put your initial and date and go across the weight tape onto the page, or they do here in the States, and that's so that they know that that weight tape was never removed and another one replaced in its place. But if they do have a printer, at least here in the States, you have to use the printer. They usually want it. And when they have printers on every one of their mountains, you know already, GMP, they want all those, because that's your proof of your weights. And you'll find, though, there's still quite a few labs out there that they don't have printers. So then everything is done in by hand.
By hand,
Which isn't too bad, because then by the time you get to the end, everything is already in all those little blocks. So all you're doing is a bunch of calculating, adding, subtracting of every single row. When you have all those weight tapes, now all those weight tapes got to go in, and you got to transfer each one of those numbers from that weight tape, and then sit and do all the calculations. So that's why sometimes some say it's better not to have weight tapes, because by the time you get to the finish, you know, you're running your last OQ, and all the numbers are already in there. So all you're going to do now is sit down and do the calculations for every one of them. But if not, you have a pile of weight tapes, and hopefully you wrote on each one so you yourself know which weight tape goes to what. And then you're just plastering weight tapes in, writing all that in there, where it's gonna take you a couple hours of just doing that with the weight tapes. Now, some companies are nice, they have the pre-stick.
So weight tapes that prints out, is that you thinking about? You said weight tapes that prints out, right?
Right, weight tapes are the printout tapes. Now, some companies have the pre-stick ones that are nice, because once you tear it off the printer, you just peel the backing and it sticks right in there. But you're still gonna put your initial and date across, so that way they know it's never been removed and replaced. You know, just say if something failed, they know that, oh, you didn't pull that and reweigh them or something, you stick another one down in its place. But everyone has their own, some people do, like what you mentioned, documents towards the end. What was that page?
The last page, supporting
Yeah,
documents.
supporting documents. Some people actually will get plain paper from like a printer or something. They'll put all their weight tapes and have to write in everything, punch holes in it, stick it in the back. Some companies like that because then they can take the individual page, bring it right over here, and then look,
To review,
you know, to when they do the review.
Yeah, I know that I cannot use the balance because I'm not actually qualified for using it. So somebody from the company must do all the weighting.
But see here, they qualify us every year here. We're qualified, we get GMP requalified every
Yeah,
year.
we also have that, but for special balance, you cannot use it unless you are trained for using it. So
Yeah,
you must
see,
call
some-
this guy from lab, and then he will take all these tubes and then
Oh, so
weight it
that-
and write it in the logbook and so
Oh,
on.
see, that then, yeah, I get a little irritated, and then that would make your process a 2-day job.
and charge you $20, huh? At the
You
end.
know,
Yeah,
it's-
kilo.
Because we run across that with some companies that, when we're doing PVTs, we're not allowed to use their UV because their UV is CFR compliant, so they have individual logins. Now, a lot of companies, you'll get the QC manager will come, he'll log in for you and use his name because he doesn't want to stand there and have to run all these samples. So he logs in for me. I just got to make sure that the screen doesn't time out. Keep shaking the mouse or something to keep the screen active, and then I run them. But then there's companies that we're dealing with one up here that we're not allowed because, oh, what do you mean? You can't have somebody sign in and you use their name. So they have to sit there and run all the samples. Well,
Very nice.
we don't like that
I can go
because-
smoke then.
well, what we don't like that is because if there's an issue or something goes wrong, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was him, he's the one who ran all the samples. How can you prove so? If they want to write a deviation because you just failed a PVT, and they want to know what could have been the reason why, well, first of all, if I have to write that I didn't run the samples, your own employee ran the samples. Because I can't say, I don't know what he did. You know, maybe he had an air bubble in that one. You know, did he check? So that's, but there are a couple of companies that are that way. Most of them here in the States, they'll log in for you. Where I have a few companies that actually give me a Distek login. And every time I go, every 6 months, the password it changes, sometimes every month or every 3 months. They gotta just reinstate my Distek, but that's all I can do. I can't get into any of their R drives or network. I can only use that UV, print out the hard copy, then I can save it. But once I save it, I can't go back and look at it because I don't have that access, but I've already printed out my hard copy. So there's a lot of different issues. Some companies, okay, you've you've got all this, you need to print it out, or they don't have a printer. So, okay, then I need to put it into a flash drive, bring it to somebody's computer there, plug it in, I need this, you know, printed out. Oh, we can't put an external flash drive that's considered uncontrolled. Okay, well, we need this. I need these numbers.
Go to IT department.
Yeah, see, and sometimes
They usually said go to IT department. They're allowed to
you'll
use
get your
flash
last,
drive.
your last minute is you're ready to run, and then again you have all the different UVs. Well, you know, it's true though. I don't remember too many places ever asking me if I know how to use the UV. A lot of them, well, some will. They'll say, you know, they'll show me real quick. You know, this is how I do simple reads. There's a couple models out there that you've got to pre-program and run sequence in first. And then they're the ones that, oh, if you have an issue, now you got to turn around and do a whole new template, because now you've goofed that template up. And then there's the models, the older models, some older Perkin-Elmer. It doesn't even tell you what the absorbance was. It does the read, flashes it real quick, and it's like, whoa, I didn't even get to see that. And you don't even know what any of the absorbances were until when it's done, it automatically prints out all your, and then you look at it and go, oh. You know, that's, and especially dealing with system suitability. It's like, I gotta be right there and ready, so as soon as it flashes that standard, I gotta write it in. Because I shouldn't be running samples if I didn't pass system suitability. But you have some of these older model UVs, you gotta write it real fast, just to see, and that's when I'll write it down on a piece of paper or something. And a lot of GMP labs, you're not allowed to have any type of note paper, write anything anywhere besides in a document. So these are like different issues that you run across.
Now you cannot even write with the black pen.
Oh, some companies it has to be blue. And that way they can tell the difference from photocopy to, because today's photocopiers are so good. You can, I sit there and I gotta look to see if there's a pressing down from my pen to see, okay, which one's the real one and which one's the copy. So yeah, there are companies that want everything written in blue pen. So that way they know that's the original, it's not a photocopy. But most of them are black pen. Or some will take black or blue. Just can never use a pencil. And another thing too, write everything as soon as you're done, like you're doing a PM, check it off as you're going along. We ran into an issue with a couple companies that gentleman turned around, did all his PMs, started on the IQs, and never filled in the protocol book for the PM. Well, that was a big no-no. The same with doing PVTs. He wanted to see all the results first to make sure they all passed before he wrote them in. Well, if you're going to do that, you need to do it the same day. He pulled all his printouts, just threw them in the book, left for the day, came back the next day to a meeting of all their QA managers that he collected all this data and nothing was written in the protocol. He got booted from the facility and the whole thing had to be redone again. So it's sort of, they instilled us here that, okay, you start writing things in. So when I get my sheet printout from the UV, all my absorbances, I turn around, I'm going to write them all in, you know, right away. And then, you know, to calculate. Now, some of us have, a lot of us have spreadsheets that will automatically calculate a percentile for us based on the system suitability, the average of the standards. So that way you're not sitting there. And some people do. Some people here, they'll calculate each one. I'll do one to verify my spreadsheet works, you know, and then that makes it a lot easier. I just fill them all in. Then you go to the USP webpage, I don't know in the different countries what they require. But here in the States, they want to see that USP webpage where you've put in all the percent dissolved, and it told you that it passed geometric mean and coefficient of variance.
And when failed appears,
Oh yeah, the fail appears. A lot of times I already know before I even do that page, so I'm already prepping that bath and getting it ready for the next set of 6 or 7 to drop. Because after you've done so many, your standards are usually always going to be about the same, 0.44 something, or anywhere from 0.43 to 0.45. The standards are always going to fall in that range. So you already know what a paddle should look like. The numbers, because paddles are really a lot tight. And baskets, they can be all over, but I have a general idea what their absorbance should be. And if I see an oddball absorbance, I'm already going to do a fast calculation right there, because I already know, by the time I finish, I got to get right to a bath now and restart that one bath for baskets or paddles, whatever failed.
do you always start two-stage test? Or
It's a
single?
customer, a lot of customers state on our work order, it'll say stage 1. In other words, they want N equals 12. But when I get there, they only want 6. And if one fails, they run the other 6. So they really want stage 2. But they say stage 1 because it's already paid for. Because if they state stage 2, you do the first 6, oh, this one failed, this one over here failed. Now we have to charge them extra to do that other set of 6 and do that other set of 6. Whereas a lot of times they play it safe, do stage 1. That's what they purchase. But when you get there, they want stage 2, do 6. So if it fails, it's already paid for, it's already covered. You just have to do it. And they want it done right then and there. Don't tell us you gotta come back.
Yeah, yeah.
But most companies are actually just N equals 6, or 7 or 8, whatever their system is set up for. And that, because it's gonna be the tightest spec when you do it that way. Doing a stage 1, N equals 12, it's your widest spec, it's open. That's why if there are those companies that just rather you just run the 12. Just get them done, run the 12. That way it's the widest spec. There's really no reason it should fail, because even if you have one oddball or another, it still really usually is going to be in. You do have a case where the first time you ran them, all your numbers were high. And then you turn it around the second time you run it again, now all your numbers are low. And there's something else going on there. And a lot of times, though, I find that it's how we're doing the media. Easy fills, I never have an issue. Helium sparging, I usually don't have too much of an issue. Where I have most of mine are vacuum under heat. Because you have to heat it over 40 degrees, draw a vacuum on it. There's where I have a tendency where you're not getting all the air out, so your results are going to be high. And I turn around and I've done baskets where your basket spec, I think, is 38% dissolved, is your top. I'm 42. Oh, right away, 42. No matter what I do to the rest of the 5, that 42 just killed me. So I already know I'm doing another set of 6. So there's, certain signs. After you've been doing them for a while, you just know, where they should be sitting. But I had a whole set all ran between 40 and 42. So it was out. If I ran another set of 6, those set of 6 would have to be right under. So now your spec goes from 38, you run in your next set of 6, so the spec opens up a little bit to 40. So, but if I had all mine at 42, I know I got to run all these have got to be 37, 38 if I'm going to squeak down past 40 to match those other high ones. It's say, it's almost like a game you play with yourself. You know what your numbers have got to be, and you know what your next set has got to be in order to get them in. Other than that, because then once your next set fails, you've now failed the second stage of a two-stage test. Then most companies now, they've got to go into some type of deviation investigation. And a lot of times they look at you and they say, okay, what happened? What's wrong? And I have some companies that want you to recheck all the mechanicals. But then at that point now, it's done investigation, I've got to leave because now my time is up. I can't spend the time to do investigation and then have to rerun all this because that'll take a couple more days. I have to go because I either have another job or I got a flight to catch. But when it gets to that investigation, some investigations will take companies a week, 2 weeks to go through all the red tape. And now I'm not there anymore, so they can't call me and ask me about, well, what do you think the possibility is? I gotta look right away. I gotta check, make sure none of my mechanicals are goofed up. But when I have readings like that, that are, you know, that kind of high, right away I know it has something to do with my media, especially if it's in the mall. It's easy to pinpoint, oh, this vessel here had a high one. Then you turn around, you ran 6 more, the same vessel had a high one. Then you know you can point it. Okay, there's something definitely wrong with that position because that same position is giving me a high result. So then, you know, you can narrow it down a little bit. I had one company that because a couple of the heights were 24.5. Not 25. They said, okay, that's reason enough for me for investigation concluded, rerun them, you know, because I found, but it's still in spec. But it wasn't 25.0. I found a couple that were 24. Well, if anything, yes, the further down your paddles are, you know, it's going to bring your numbers up. So there's sometimes ways that I have some companies that because they run across, they do their own PVTs and they realize, and I'll go there to do MQs and all their paddles are set at 26 because they know it gives them better numbers when they have to do PVTs. It's still in spec. But now I myself have to bring them, because of my qualification, I got to bring them all back to 25. I don't care what you do after I walk out that door. You know, I did my job. I've got them all where they're supposed to be. You know, I signed off. Yeah. Because there's a lot of companies out there that just run paddles. They don't do baskets. Or there's the opposite. There's all those that do baskets. So they'll NA. They'll say, okay, anything with, you know, baskets NA because we don't ever run baskets on these. These units are all paddles only. It's where you run into where they only use baskets, but all of the protocol, it has to be done with paddles because you've got your timing tests, your temperature tests. They all have to be done with paddles. So even though I may NA paddle height, you know, I still have to do shaft wobble. That's really the only one I can think of that you may have to just NA. Because they're not running paddles, so they don't care. They want baskets. But is there anything you can think of about it in all the sample that you want to go over? I think you mentioned something about a flow. You wanted the flow chart. Yeah, I'll have to find out to see if we even have anything like that. You know, of each of the different functions. And I'm thinking, oh, I could probably draw something. But you'd have to take a picture of
Actually,
each.
some instruments I deal with, I don't know if you get some, like flashes. They just go how the liquid flows, yeah, with like a small video.
I know.
I don't know if you have such videos or flashes.
See, I think,
Or
like
even drawing.
yeah, even like Ed said yesterday, is that, you know, we'd like to get a lot of videos of a lot of this, but his problem is trying to find any of us to pull us out of the field.
You want to be a Hollywood star?
No, I prefer being out there somewhere. But where I get to be Hollywood star is some of the facilities that I go to that I gotta train them. They'll have their cameras going while I'm going through a demonstration or, something like that. But after you start using an autosampler for a while, you'll start to understand, the individual functions, what it does, what each. So that's why I try to explain to you that one of the easiest things is doing that system wash. Right before you, because a lot of times I don't even trust an instrument. If I go into a lab, I don't even trust if they've even cleaned the thing. So I don't know if they still have drug sitting in media, still in the lines or in the wash, and I don't know what they've been working on, especially some of these narcotic labs. So I'm automatically going to do some washes, right away. And what that's like the first thing before I even turn everything off to do a PM. I'm going to run a couple of washes. And that's the whole telltale, I think. Doing a wash is going to tell you all the functions that you see on a wash. It's going to answer a lot of your questions, or it's going to tell you how your OQ is going to turn out, right up front. Because again, that first pull, that's going to tell you how it's going to sample. I'll make sure all the filters are out. So I'll go to facilities, I'll take that probe out, it's still got an old filter still sitting in there. I pop out all the filters and stick it in some clean, some run hot water, warm water. Well, I want to do regular water first, because if I use hot, that may clear out a line for me. Then I don't know if there's other lines that are kind of gooed up or stuck or got salts or stuff in there. But that first pull, when those things come down, because they're not going to come down all the way, they're going to come down about 3/4 of the way. And as long as you look across and see all of them are all about even fill, you already know there's not going to be an issue from the probes up. So you know those lines now are all good. When it goes to push, now it's taking all that, it's going to push it through the needles into the recycle bin. There is where, one, you're going to find out if something's going to burst or if a line's going to break. But when I'm doing that, I pull these covers off. That way I can see, the functions. But if it starts pushing now, you go through the needles to the recycle tray, and all of a sudden a line bursts, over here. See which one it is, because it's still now pushing. So you're either going to shut it off now, or if you see it starting to blow up, you can shut that pump off right away, and you'll see it start to go down. And look at the line. Now, normally, because now it's going through the collector, that line is either going to be on the media line or it's going to be on a vessel line, but because they're the ones that are clamped down. So where you see which line, number 3, is ready to burst. Okay, that means something is backing up from here to the needles. And normally, first sign to check is, I'll bet you there's either a piece of septum or something stuck up in that number 3 line, needle that is going to create that. Or I'll bring this forward, and I'll do that before I even run a system wash. I want to see how that back of that reservoir looks on the recycle tray. Excuse me, because a lot of times it's disgusting. I'll slide this thing forward and I'll look at that recycle tray and it's
black,
brown, black, or it's filled with white crystalline,
you know, either from their buffers or dried up